the Logan Canyon. You can get to Logan Canyon from where we're at on dirt roads. So this is still a good story. This was a long time ago because they were building the Manti Temple. Okay, so at the Manti Temple timber operation, where they were cutting wood for the temple, men would come down and stay for 2 or 3 weeks. After the camp had been set up for a while, they would hear strange noises in the brush, like a bear or something. They didn't know what it was, but the dogs in camp would bark. Sometimes this thing would get close, and they could see it on the edge of the firelight. They would build a bonfire to scare it away. In the morning, they would find huge tracks that it left. One night, some of the dogs went after it, nipping at it. The beast got mad and started swinging at the dogs. The other dogs joined in and circled it. Oh, the thing killed the dogs one by one. Then they heard it go after the horses. The horses were making noises in fright, but they were also silenced one by one. Rude. At this point, the men were so scared they built a big bonfire and shot their guns into the dark. Finally, the beast left. In the morning, they found that the back of every horse was broken, and some of the dogs had been thrown 40 feet up into the trees. They figure it was the Bigfoot monster.
Jeez.
Well, I sure hope it was, because what else?
Killed a bunch of their animals.
Yeah, killed their horses. Rude. He got pissed off because the dogs circled it and started snapping at it. And that was a really long time ago, because the Manti Temple's pretty old. Probably kind of like the same vibe as when the loggers, when it came in, and because they probably weren't. It's probably like a very first encounter with people.
Is there a source of who got the report?
The source says that it was an interview with Alan Stock by Kenneth Holm, Merrill Library, Special Collections, Folklore Collection, Utah State University. So
that's the university in Logan where that they had the report.
Yeah, there's a Special Collections Folklore, and it's number 84.
Okay, cool.
Interview with Alan Stock by Kenneth Holm.
Well, that's a really creepy one because a bunch of animals died. I mean, can you imagine losing your horses and your dogs overnight?
No.
What kind of animal can do that? I mean, like a grizzly bear, for instance, would have chewed them up, clawed them up. A grizzly bear don't toss dogs into the tree.
There's nothing else up there that could kill a horse besides a grizzly bear. And if it wasn't clawed up by a bear, yeah, that's bad news. Plus, they saw it.
Oh, my God. Will you go back to the description of what they say they saw?
Yeah, hold on. It doesn't really say. It says sometimes this thing would get close enough and they could see it at the edge of the firelight. They would build a huge bonfire to scare it away. The only thing that they actually describe is that it had huge tracks. So obviously it had huge, big feet tracks.
They chalked it up as a Bigfoot sighting, so yes. The people that had the experience thinks that that's possibly what it was. That was harassing them, killed their horses and dogs.
No, because at this time, Bigfoot wasn't Bigfoot. This is before it was a Bigfoot.
It really didn't get out into the mainstream until the Patterson-Gimlin footage in October 1967. And of course, it took a while for the film to get around.
This was before that. Because this was a timber operation, cutting wood to build the temple.
We've actually been up in that canyon before.
Yeah, we stopped and took pictures. Creepy. Okay, I think I had one more. In Providence Canyon.
We've been Bigfooting in Providence Canyon several times because somebody in Logan a couple of years ago, Derek Hines, spotted it on the mountain ridge behind his house, probably less than a mile from Providence Canyon. So that's why we went up Providence Canyon looking around after his Bigfoot sighting.
That day we were doing that is the day Didn't we get a call from...
That was the Perry Canyon.
Oh, that was Perry Canyon.
We got a call when we were doing the Perry Canyon expedition of someone that just saw a Bigfoot.
Here.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they saw it here. That's why the camera's here.
Okay, it was 1979 when I was 10 years old. It was early on a cold fall morning in October or November, just like now. My father, older brother, younger sister, and I bundled up in warm clothes to head up Providence Canyon to cut firewood for the wood-burning stove we kept in our basement.
Oh, sorry.
At the top of Providence Canyon is a large rock quarry. We drove along the road, and as we arrived at the edge of the quarry, we turned off the road to the right and drove cross-country for a couple of minutes until we were deep in a stand of trees that we were permitted to cut for firewood. My dad used his chainsaw to cut the trees down and into sections. Once the sections were cut, my brother, sister, and I would take the cut pieces and stack them into the back of the truck as we had been shown how to do. Me, being around 10 years old and my sister being around 8, quickly grew bored with the tedious and difficult, at least to us at the time, work. We asked our dad if we could go play. Rather than having us around underfoot and in the way, he gave us permission to play. He warned us not to go out of earshot so that we wouldn't get lost on the mountain. We said that we were going to play in the quarry, and our dad told us not to climb the giant piles of gravel because it could cause a slide and trap us. After promising not to do anything dangerous, my sister and I walked the 100 or 200 yards away to the quarry. As we walked, we listened to the birds in the trees and talked and played games. When we arrived at the edge of the quarry, things began to change. The first thing we noticed was how absolutely dead quiet it had become. The birds were no longer singing and nothing was moving. As we walked out of the edge of the tree line to the edge of the quarry, there was a small embankment of gravel, dirt, and small rocks leading up to a flat open area of knee-high grass and dirt. The sloping embankment was approximately 15 feet high. My sister and I approached the embankment to climb up. We both immediately noticed that there were 2 fresh, relatively even-spaced marks on the gravel and dirt, diagonally up the embankment, which would make the impressions roughly 5 feet apart. We walked the last few steps to the embankment and began trudging up the embankment. We were curious about what could have made those marks. We assumed it was some sort of animal, but we didn't know exactly what. When we got to the first mark, it was immediately clear to us that the mark was an enormous footprint, and that the footprint was pointed uphill. That seemed very strange, because it would have been someone very huge to make such big prints and take such large strides. Our curiosity led us to climb the remainder of the way to the top of the embankment. Our curiosity ended immediately upon reaching the top. 3 things struck me instantly. One thing was a very strong sour smell. Another thing was that there was a very large patch of grass and weeds that had been smashed down to look very much like a bed or a nest. And the final thing that struck me was a feeling of wrongness. I don't know of any other way to describe the feeling other than it just felt wrong and like I had to get out of there. My sister was also visibly frightened. Although I did not see anything, my sister did. She said she saw something brown running into the trees across the clearing. She later described it as a very large chestnut brown thing running on 2 legs. I had heard of Bigfoot before that, but did not think about Bigfoot at that time until my sister said that she had saw something running into the trees. That is when I began to think of it as Bigfoot. I shouted, "Run!" and we ran down the embankment and ran back to my father and brother as fast as possible. I was shouting. My sister was crying. I ran up to my dad and shouted, "Dad, Dad, we saw something. I think it was Bigfoot." I tried to explain exactly what had happened, but he was not particularly interested in what I was ranting on about and dismissed it outright. We spent the rest of the morning and afternoon sitting in the cab of the pickup truck, not wanting to go outside, just wanting to go home. We tried to talk to our mom and a few other people about it later, but no one would seriously listen to us. Thus, we had kept the story between us for the past 30 years. But we know what we saw that day. Okay, so we've been up there. We've been to that quarry.
A couple of times.
In October and November. Exactly back in 1979. Would have been when my parents took us out and we would have to help collect firewood for our burning stove that kept our house warm.
We did the same thing when I was growing up. That was a major thing that we did several times during the summertime. We would go on a camping trip, a working camping trip. My dad would cut down the trees and block them up, and then us kids would have to load them up onto the truck and trailer, and our reward was camping and fishing.
It never failed. The day that we were gonna cut wood was always rainy, so we always had our slickers on, but I enjoyed that day. I always thought it was the funnest day. I loved it. It smelled good. I liked the time of year. So back in the early, like the mid 70s, late 70s, that is exactly what I would have been doing during that time of the year.
As a matter of fact, this mountain range that we're on, people affectionately call this mountain, we're on Monte Cristo. This is one of the regular spots that we used to come to cut firewood every summer. And then the other spot was Star Valley, Wyoming.
And where we cut was in Price, Utah, which is just on the other side of Indian Canyon.
Yep, and Sasquatch.
Sasquatch Canyon. So
it's close enough to Price that the hunters from Price nicknamed it Sasquatch Canyon.
Oh yeah, I wish I would have seen Bigfoot. I think the only thing I ever saw was deer. I like how the kids are like, yeah, it just felt wrong. And, you know, I've felt that.
Had that feeling too.
Yeah, and it could be a bear. It could be most likely a mountain lion, whatever. When I felt things are just too quiet and just wrong, you know something's watching you. It's definitely a predator of some sort.
Well, Jenny has this sixth sense that when we first really got together and stuff, at first I was like, no way. We were in Glacier, Montana on a remote hike with two of our kids, and we stopped for a break to catch our breath, and Jenny's like, something's watching us. I was like, what? There's nothing watching us. And then all of a sudden Jenny's like, there it is. And 10, 15 feet away, hanging upside down from the lowest branch in a pine tree, was a pine marten watching us.
But I didn't know what a pine marten was. It was just a creepy little animal that I'd never seen before. And to me, it reminded me of that little thing that sits on Jabba the Hutt's shoulder that goes, hee 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 hee. That's what it looked like.
It's almost like what they got the character from, is a pine marten. He's looking at us curiously and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she really sensed something was watching us. And so that was pretty cool. That's just one instance of many times. I now trust her sixth sense. When she thinks something's watching us or can sense something living around, I go with her sixth sense because she's in tune with it. More in tune with it than I am.
I think a lot of people are. Most people are. They just don't know what it feels like, or they don't acknowledge it. But I don't know. It usually works.